Hello, my name is Sweetness Whachacha, and welcome to the very first episode of Chrome. Now, Chrome in the board gaming world means something that looks cool. Maybe a gimmick perhaps, some artwork, something that adds to the theme, but really doesn't have any actual mechanical function in the game. But it is certainly a lot of fun, and it can make the game more enjoyable. Now in this series we're going to look at ways to upgrade and make games deluxe. Not really how to do them, but kind of like, hey, this is what I've done, and I want to share it with you because we're in a niche hobby, but we live in a time of ultra connectivity, so I can share this with people, and hopefully this series will entertain or inspire you to do your own stuff. So thanks for watching, and without further ado, here's the first episode of Chrome. Okay, so here's a quick look at some things you can do to make Caverna a little more enjoyable.
Okay, so if you're going to be watching my videos, you're going to notice a trend that I really enjoy playing games, and I just like to kind of pull them out and play, And a lot of times you want to play a game like Caverna that is, has a lot of pieces inside the box. It could dissuade you from playing, and so I like to just, boom, 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 go and play. So I've kind of set it up so I can just go ahead and play, and I'll show you here. So inside we have, here's all of your fields, and other fields there, your mines, your fenced-in fields, I guess that's just your rock caverns there. So that's all in there. I do have a baggie for our starting pieces, all the odds and ends just to start with, and the weapons, although I'll show you something about that in a second. And then just for fun, even though I've said that I don't want to set up a lot of games, I have my little fun stuff that I like to put around here, just for, it's very silly, don't like to take a lot of time, and yet here I am putting useless things out. And then I have all of the pieces, all the stuff that you need right in there. And so that's, all of your animals, your food, your vegetables, other animals, victory points, etc. I could actually add another compartment here and throw these in there too, if I ever feel like screwing around with that. And then the room tiles, I'm going to set this aside from now, I'll show you that in a second. And they are all ready to go. You'll notice they are on this little board that I've created for that. And then for the other set of room tiles, right there. So there you go. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, one last thing here. I forgot to show you. The dwellings are too tall, so they can't be magnetized, which is how those are on there, so they just sit in a stack. Bam, set up for Caverna, and however long that was, a minute or so, whatever. You'll see, like, I just added a little magnet there, and they stick right on there. So if you set them on your player board, it's just raised a little bit, not a big deal at all. There you go. Just to show you a little bit how I did this, in case you want to do this yourself. All I did, I'll show you. This is just a piece of metal. I didn't finish the back because I was lazy. And then for these, obviously, I just cut magnet strips and put them on there. They are curved a little bit, so I got to weigh them down in order to, kind of reduce some of that curve on there. I spray painted these brown to cover where the paper wasn't. I copied these on a copy machine and just spray glued, put the sheet down, and then, of course, all you have to, so that way you have, like, the mine goes right there, the miner goes right there, etc. These little things, there's a ton of, I know there's like a ridiculous amount of inserts out there now, like people making inserts. You got a lot to choose from nowadays. But if you decide you want to do something like this yourself, all this is foam core. I just cut foam core and then I just copied these and put these down on there. If you're going to do that, all you got to do is get one of these little plug-in X-Acto knives. You will just be so incredibly shocked when it just goes through like butter. It just cuts through it because of the heat. It's pretty wild, actually. And then all I did was hot glue, and that was enough. If you want a stronger structure, then you can cut toothpicks and put them through, and then and then hot glue it for reinforcement as well. That can create a little bit more stability. I should point out also, if you do want to do this project for yourself, My wife and I play 2-player. I've never played this anything but 2-player, so there are extra pieces that we don't use. So if you were to do something like this, you'd need a little more. You'd need to do something a little differently to accommodate those if you play with more players. And of course, the same thing. We don't play with the extra player pieces, so I don't even really worry about those. The only downside to this is that I like to store my games like this, okay? Because then it's just very nitpicky, but you just grab and go. When you store them flat like this and you put them all on top of each other, then you got to move those off to get to a game underneath. I know that's very nitpicky, but I don't really like to do that. This game I have to, though, because I don't know if you saw, but the game box will actually sit up higher because it's a little too much stuff in there the way it is. And so because of that, I really can't store it on its side without having any disastrous results. So now I want to clean up my game of Caverna like incredibly fast. Ready? So we take this. I don't know if you want to. You can time this, although I guess it doesn't count in whatever way it would count because I'm not putting the player boards, cleaning up the player boards, but that can go in there. This goes on top of here. This goes into the box. This goes into the box. This goes into the box. These guys go in. This useless thing goes in. And voila. Done. So that's pretty cool, and obviously you can do that with any game that you want that requires a ton of pieces. And Uwe Rosenberg's games are obviously a prime candidate since they always have a ton of pieces.
Okay, so here's a look at a way you can improve some of your games very easily and for free.
Okay, so Kingsburg, just going to show you a few games here. Kingsburg, very, very popular, very fun game. And just to go on free, you can just go on Board Game Geek, and there are, these are actual, unless I, don't quote me on that, I guess, because I'm pretty sure that these are put out from Fantasy Flight. But they're just free scenarios, and then it just has a little story, extra rules to set up or variations to, variants to play. And all you have to do is print them out, and boom, you're ready to roll. So you just throw them right in the box. They don't take up much room. That's kind of cool. Also, Legends of Andor. They had some stuff out too. There's another character that you could print out. It's a male and female for that character. Again, all you do is cut them out, and then they have a whole new adventure. All you have to do is, print, cut, cut it, and fold them, and that's a whole new adventure for that game. And I'm pretty sure the base box came out with it's a whole bonus legend. The base box came out, I think it's 4 or 5 adventures, and so that's a whole new adventure. That's a fifth of what you got in the box, or a fourth. I can't remember exactly how many were in there, but that's pretty cool. And one last one here, Robinson Crusoe. For Christmas or something, I can't remember what it was, but they had available, you could print out these, one or both, just as like a thank you to people who had purchased the game. King Kong, so very awesome. That's like very exciting for me. I haven't played this one yet, simply because I'm building my way up, and as you may or may not know, it's a very difficult game. And so it's, this is maybe a reward that will be played soon instead of trying to win my way up there. And then this is sort of a precursor to the Voyage of the Beagle, which is the expansion, which is the naturalist Charles Darwin here. So that's kind of cool. I think one or both of these may be available from the Board Game Geek store. So if you want to go and support the Board Game Geek, you can go on there and buy them. But I had done this previous to their having that available. So those are from the company, free, and that's very exciting. And obviously you can go on Board Game Geek as well, and there's tons of fan-made variants and things like that. But that's just a kind of a cool, easy, printed out way to get a little extra out of your games.
Okay, so here's the full shiny chrome version of King of New York. It's a full upgrade, not like the other ones I've showed you today. I'll try to kind of show you some small things and medium things, and I'll try to mix it up per episode. But this is going to be for King of New York. Okay, so that's a game from Yellow, designed by Richard Garfield, known for his Magic the Gathering lifetime or whatever. So here is a look at that game. I'm not going to review the game because this is kind of a series for board gamers, so if you know the game, that's cool. But I do want to kind of take a quick look at some of the components to remind you or refresh your memory if you haven't played in a while or whatever. So here's the board. You've got Manhattan, you've got the Bronx, you got Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island, and you have these little spots to put the monsters on, and of course those are that's cities, you know. So in this version of the game, I try to make that a 3D, but still keep it close to the idea of this. You also have these little cardboard standees, and they would kind of like, you know, they're in the city, like, you know, moving around. Now this particular game, I did do a little bit of a reskin. So I apologize for the artist and stuff. It's not anything about, you know, I mean, I think this guy's pretty awesome looking. He's a giant praying mantis. I love praying mantises, so that's pretty cool. But I'm not a sculptor, and so I couldn't really make a real good 3D version of this. I'm also a big Godzilla fan. Oh, not a big Godzilla fan. I mean, I like Godzilla a lot, not as much as some, but not, you know, certainly not as. It's a weird Godzilla thing. You see, like, if you see, you know, 15 Godzilla movies, you can't be taken seriously by normal people, and you can't be taken seriously by real Godzilla fans. So I'm somewhere in the middle, I guess. I will work my way through the rest of them, but that's a tangent. So I did reskin it with a little bit of Godzilla look to it because I could buy some figures and things and kind of do that. So it isn't going to be a strict interpretation of this game. It is a slight reskin, although I did stay very true to that. So without further ado, let's take a look. Okay, so here's King of New York. You can just kind of take a good overview. We'll kind of go into little areas and I'll show you a little better what's going on with some of that stuff. So you see the central board here. You got your buildings, you got your rubble. These are placed, I'll talk about these a little more in hindsight, future sight. So, you know, that's Manhattan. You got the 3 spots there. And then the individual little boroughs colored just like they are on the main board. You got your Brooklyn Bridge. I put a little Statue of Liberty in there, you know. And then the monsters themselves I used, whoops, as I said in the intro, as I reskinned this a bit, and I just used these little chibi Godzilla guys like Mechagodzilla and Godzilla and Mothra and King Ghidorah and Gigan and Destroya. And then over here is going to be Monster Island, which is some of the tokens and things go here, and if you're only playing, you know, if you're not playing as many, you know, characters, you can store those monsters here on Monster Island. But, you know, if you want to fight them or move around, you would just move to the different areas and have little battles throughout. And then we have their dice towers here. They're big Godzilla dice towers, so when it's time to roll, you can just roll like that. And then you can, you know, set those aside and re-roll these. Or re-roll it that way, doesn't really matter. So it's a little wonky now because I've got it raised up a little, so it's not as sturdy as it should be. But okay, and then over here we've got your cards, you know, the cards to buy. We've got the military, this kind of military area for the players. So that's kind of the overview of the game board. Now we're going to go and zoom in a little bit, and we're going to take a little better look at things. So we'll come in right here, and you can see, you know, that I've got, this is just kind of sawdust and debris here that I've spray painted these areas and pieces of wood here, just kind of glued them down. You know, and I had to make sure the spaces were, you know, big enough to accommodate multiple monsters. So that's kind of what those areas are about. And then that obviously I have to do a little separation there for Manhattan. And then we'll take a little better look here at the military spot here. And so what I did was I put these, if you pick these up, you can see, you know, that the planes there are, you know, kind of acting to push that card up a little bit so it's nice and easy to grab off of there. And it kind of has that whole, you know, missiles and bombs, and, you know, because those guys obviously want to, you know, they're trying to get rid of those monsters that are destroying their city. And so the main whole deck, I had to just, you know, earlier in the video I talked about cutting that foam core, and I just did the same thing. I spray painted some foam core, cut it to what I needed. And then these, you may recognize these pieces as being from Axis and Allies. These are just the planes and things from various Axis and Allies expansions or whatever. I have a lot of those hanging around, so I decided they would be good. Yeah, let's take a little look at Monster Island here. I'll line everybody up on here so it looks extra cool. Actually, I kind of have to do this in a specific order because some of the wings and things are a little much. So I think I put Godzilla on the end here, the big man himself. Okay, so you know, this is Monster Island here. So it's, you know, I cut the foam core, I layered it, painted it, and I cut a hole here so he could, you know, so they could go. And then the energy cubes and things, so these are cut in, I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's cut into like a monster foot, obviously, or not obviously, but all these are the same way, you know, so that's, you know, they've
been stepping through and leaving their big monstrous imprints here. And then those are kind of, rather than having, you know, so the energy cubes and just the little chits that you needed in the game. And then okay, so here's a little close up on the dice towers. I made these two. I'm pretty sure you can tell that these don't come from a factory. I didn't really have much of a plan when I made them, so you can see they, you know, he looks like he took a couple of slugs on the chin from Mechagodzilla or something. I'm bending him down a little bit so you can see his eyes and you can see his mouth. He's got that red felt in his mouth. Because you can see them when you're sitting next to it, but it's a little harder to translate on the video. And then he has a little, you know, the Godzilla spikes on the back. So, you know, as I showed you before, you know, they go right in. I used, you know, Godzilla's always coming out of the water, into Japan to attack, and so I used the blue here, and I made the dice tower out of foam core, same way I did everything else, as I showed you earlier in the video, just using that hot knife and everything. And there's a ton of plans online to make dice towers. You can find them. Just type in dice tower template, and I'm sure you'll come up with something. And then I lined the red felt inside, and all inside the dice tower also, so that it quiets down the sound of the dice. Another thing is I had to make sure, because the dice are much larger than regular dice, that they would actually fit in that dice tower. And then I just wrapped it, like I said, without a real plan. I kind of was winging it. There are, I'm sure, papercraft things where they can show you actual, Godzilla or other things like that. If you wanted to emulate this kind of a thing, I'm sure do a much better job than I did on that. But they, a lot of them are paid, and I didn't want to be putting it online, and if somebody else had, take credit for somebody else's thing. So that's what I did there. So that's the Godzilla dice tower. And I also put one on each side so that a player sitting here and a player sitting here, they could both use this dice tower, and then players on the other side could use the other dice tower. Okay, so here's hindsight, future sight. This is kind of where I talk about things that I would have done differently and things that I would do in the future to, add to the game or whatever. And I'll try to do this for every one that I do. Overall, I was pretty happy with the way this came out. But there were a few things that I would have liked to have done a little differently. So one of them, probably the biggest thing really, is these guys here. Now you notice that they're kind of lame looking there because it's just, not that these are lame, but it's lame compared to everything else is souped up, I guess. I tried not to keep talking about Axis and Allies, but I had planes, I had a little Jeep, I had planes, and I had tanks, okay? And then these power plants, I had actual power plants for that game, that if anybody remembers that old, they would have little industrial complexes, they called them. But I kind of thought I could stick them on a little chit, and then I could put the other piece on the other side, but to do that, you'd have to have a frame here. You'd have to have raised portion, so you'd be putting the plane inside so that you could stack them easily. And I just couldn't find a way that wasn't going to take me 1,000 years and whatever. So if anybody else wants to emulate this or do something similar, that's what I could think of or come up with. But maybe somebody else would have a better solution for those. So that's that's what I would have done a little differently for that. And I kind of wish I had been able to do something, but whatever. Secondly, these guys here, the dice towers, I used hot glue, and there's no real this is how you create a King of New York 3D version or whatever. So you kind of have to wing a lot of this stuff, and so I thought, oh well, hot glue is a good way to do this because I can put that on quick, and then just it'll dry. But it kind of left some streaks. Some of this popped up. It didn't really go as neatly as I want, and I had some problems with various things, as you can see. So I think in the future I would have brushed Mod Podge on, and then put you take Mod Podge and you just literally just brush like you were painting it, and then put the paper on, and actually that helps to stick it on there. So I would have done that a little differently. Those they definitely look a little battle worn. So and you could find you could find prototype, paper craft of anything, but like I said, I just, I like the way they look because I made them or whatever, but, I have to admit that there are some, deficiencies there, but you can find paper craft for things, but as I said, I didn't want to use something that was somebody else's design on my thing. So, other than that, let's see, I think that, then the last thing was, you'll notice that your health and,
your health and victory point trackers are not on here. And so, I did make these little cubes, and I couldn't find any stickers or stencils or stamps that were really the size of these cubes, which was really what I was working with. I tried drawing them on. I didn't like the way they came out, so I just figured you can just use whatever the game came with. You'll notice that there are spaces on the board, kind of for you to put your own cards and your own stuff, so if you were to put them, on there, that way you can keep track. I was gonna, Mod Podge of paper on there that I photoshopped, with these characters, etc. But I didn't end up doing that, so that's something else I could have done. But you can just use what the game came with, so that's just one thing. Maybe if somebody else does something similar, that's something to change, or something maybe if I tinker at more with this, I can do differently. So that's really the only thing. I mean, I was pretty happy with this project. Overall, like I said, it's got some wonkiness here and there. These things kind of tend to travel. You may see there's a few little, they tend to break off. I don't really see that there's much I could do about that. Yeah, so that's this project. I hope it inspires you to do something similar, or you maybe just thought that was cool to look at. So thank you very much for watching.